who controls them, how they were developed, what they are. And the ones that we have covered so far have been the Bilderberg Group, the Council on Foreign Relations, the Trilateral Commission, and the Club of Rome. After this section on the Committee of 300, then we will go over the Royal Institute of International Affairs, and last but not least, the United Nations, that organization in New York City. When we say United Nations, we're talking about the true 198 nations of mankind that have united together for the benefit of mankind, not that organization. But we will be discussing that as well. But we've been talking about the Committee of 300, which is basically the top 300 global leaders. Underneath the Committee of 300 is the Council of 33, and then the Council of 13. And the Council of 13 is one member out of the top ruling Illuminati families. At the very top of the so-called pyramid of the Illuminati lies the Pindar. The Pindar is always male, and he has come out of the head of the Rothschild family for several hundred years. He symbolizes the pinnacle of the Draco, and he reports to the purebred reptilian leader. Now, for those of you that may not be familiar with that, Scripture talks about it in the holy books, that Eve was beguiled by the serpent. The Scriptures are telling you that these fallen angels, also known as Nephilim, were reptilian. And to this very day, their sons and daughters of their bloodline are the ruling global elite up until they were shut down in the year of 2000. So they're still out there doing their best to destroy mankind, but Father Yah and his son, they have a totally different plan, and that is the plan of success. So this morning, if you were not on this morning's UN call, I do recommend that you go back and listen to it, as Dr. Henderson, YAHOSHUA, gave you a very simple and clear understanding of the serpent and how the serpent and his offspring function. So tonight I'm going to be going down, as we sometimes say, some pretty deep rabbit holes explaining who these people are, what their intent is, and how they function. So in just a few moments, I'm going to probably tell you, or I will tell you, I highly recommend that if you have any little ears listening, that you send them into the other room, because we're going down into the part that is not at all pleasant. Now, this information came out 2 years ago. It's called The Lizard King of the Illuminati by Jerry Derecha. But he has a lot of quotes in here from a gentleman that I have studied for many years. In fact, the very first book that Dr. Henderson gave me to study was David Icke's book, Children of the Matrix. He also has a book, The Biggest Secret, and so some of this information comes out of those books. Now, he, for those of you who don't know who David Icke is, he was a very famous footballer or soccer player in Britain, and then he went on into media, and now he started, because he knew a lot of these people firsthand, and I'm talking about this reptilian bloodline. So he has written expose all books regarding them. So the reptilian royalty, these are the winged reptilians, with the very highest caste of these beings being the albino or white type. Beneath those are the reptoids. These are the wingless reptilians. They are the ones described as having larger scales on their backs and 3 fingers with an opposing thumb. Then underneath those are what is called the grays, described as either being drone-like slaves of the reptilians or an extraterrestrial life form allied to them. And then underneath all of those are we human beings, or mankind. Now, many people have seen in their lifetimes some of these people, and they look just like you and me until they get excited. That can be excited in an anger form. If they become angry, they will shapeshift and not be able to hold their form. Those of the purer bloodlines have the ability to totally shapeshift into a completely reptilian creature. Those of the lesser bloodlines, such as the Bushes, the Clintons, Tony Blair, other ones that are of these bloodlines, have the ability to shapeshift somewhat. And they've been caught on camera. So any of you, if you've come across some of these people, you have seen them do this. Our global leaders who are around them quite frequently are very accustomed to what I'm telling you about right now. But for those of regular mankind, these things may seem rather far-fetched, but these are indeed the truth. So the Pindar that we were talking about, that sits at the very highest part of the pinnacle, attends the major satanic ceremonies in Europe, and then flies to California for the rituals there. All of these people are Luciferian or Satan worshipers. Satan and Lucifer are not the same person. It's father and son. But the Pindar will attend these satanic ceremonies again in Europe and in California. An area in California that maybe you've heard about where these rituals take place is in the Bohemian Grove. Also in David Icke's book, Biggest Secret, it says that the Pindar travels in a white limousine. That a code white is a code understood by judges, police, the military, etc. And it means to look the other way or do not prosecute this person. Now, these people are at the top of the Illuminati organization. They're the ones that truly have ran this planet. These groups are known as far as the family lineages: the Rothschilds or Bauer, Bruce, Cavendish, Kennedy, de Medici, Hanover, Habsburg, Krupps, Plantagenet, Rockefeller, Romanov, Sinclair or St. Clair, Warburg or Del Banco, and Windsor families. These were the ones that founded the New World Order. They also worship Satan and take part in human sacrifice and ritual child abuse. You will see that they do inbreed in themselves to keep their bloodline as pure as possible so that they have the potential to remain with the ability to shapeshift. Therefore, it is another level of deception. These people are the most evil people on the planet. And their hold has been very strong. But now, as Father Yah-Allah has sent his son, YAHOSHUA Mashiach, to this planet, that for the last 30 plus years has been bringing truth and sovereignty to the planet, the world is now waking up. As the world is waking up now, they are holding their global leaders accountable for the very treachery and treason that they have perpetrated against mankind. So from what star constellation are the reptilians said to originate? It is from Draco. So what is the difference between the reptilian full-bloods and reptilian hybrids? Full-bloods are reptilians using a human form to hide their true nature. Hybrids are reptilian human crossbreed bloodlines who are possessed by the reptilians from the fourth dimension. Now, in the book of Genesis, it talks about how the fallen angels found that the daughters of men were very pleasing, and they took them to be their wives and created this crossbreed bloodline of reptilian and humans. And that was the true fall of man. Because at that point in time, mankind went from an RNA being to a DNA RNA stranded being. The DNA comes from the celestial and the RNA from the terrestrial, or celestial from the sky and telestial from the earth. Because Father Yah created us from the dirt and breathed life into us. Therefore, we became a living being. So when you hear doctors speaking about the land, we are the land, and the land is us. We really, truly are of the soil of this planet. So now where did the white race come from? And the reptile, Aryan, crossbreeds. You heard Doctor speaking, I think it was this morning, I know it was this week, about the Aryans. They emerged from after the flood. They came out of the Caucasus Mountains. What were the Aryans who left the Caucasus to rule India called? They were called the Katillo. So now where did the Jewish race originate from? The Caucasus Mountains. In fact, Jewish is not even a race. They were simply the jewelers, and they were the offsprings of the reptilians and human beings, or mankind. And they were jewelers. They knew metallurgy magic. They were also the ones that created money magic, which ultimately turned into the banking system. And in Scripture, you will hear Jesus or YAHOSHUA, whichever name you want to call him, say that the Jews, that these were those that called themselves Jews, but are not, but are of the synagogue of Satan. And so what the Jews have done was taken the true history of the Hebrew Israelites and implanted themselves and hid from the rest of the world the true history of mankind, the Hebrew Israelites. So now, family, I'm getting ready to go down to some of the dark areas that if you do have little ones listening, I do recommend that you, again, send them out of the room. There was a cult called the Mothers of Darkness. And according to the Mothers of Darkness, this is a satanic cult based in Brussels, Belgium, who train and educate the MK Ultra child slaves. MK Ultra, yes, truly exists, family. It is not a conspiracy, nor is it a theory, but it is fact. They are, these MK Ultra child slaves are born to the blood. The Aryan bloodline is alien to this planet. According to David Icke's book, The Biggest Secret, they were a race of people fleeing the reptiles and got here about 4000 BC. Then they also started mixing with the locals. They had red hair, blonde hair, blue eyes, and they may have been of great stature, as recent excavations also say that they were even as 8 foot tall. Then the reptilian species, who have, according to the Giza plane mathematics, have come from the Serpens star cluster, arriving in 2000 BC, as record would have it, infiltrated the human race in its social structure and began the hybridization experimentation. A lot of that you see as chimeras when they were creating dogmen or people with dog heads. You see these people in the hieroglyphs. They were not just symbolism, they were actual beings. And the Scripture also tells us that as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be in the coming of the Son of Man. Well, chimeras is what is being created on this planet right now, so that's just another part of that fulfillment. One of these bloodlines was the foundation of the Merovingian dynasty. Now, there are 13 bloodlines from this kind of stock, and all of them have, to a greater or lesser degree, the capacity to shapeshift. They are known as shapeshifting in human mythology, goes back to as far as North Africa, Tibet, Maya, and Rome. But these were not myths. Their mission is to bring its ancestors, thought of as demons, out of an abyss from which they cannot escape, and seek to open up a gate or portal, Yog Sothoth, to enable them to do so. This is even written in Scriptures about how these ones are kept in an abyss. And then for them to be able to do this, they need lots of pure Aryans. The occult ritual and ceremony, satanic and druidic, they perform on Aryan sacrifices, which serve several purposes. Because the reptiles allegedly cannot call up their lost mates from the abyss, they need the spiritual properties of the Aryans to do the ceremony for them. They turn up after the ritual has been followed and give their special team of shape changers encouragement to carry on looking for the way to go with the escape of the demons from the abyss. Various MK Ultra slaves are there. Some get eaten. Some get orgied, flesh and blood devoured. That of the sacrifice especially. A female whose combination of blood, preferably menstrual blood, and doctor has even been talking about this lately. And with the secretion from the pineal gland, which is stimulated by intense fear, the sacrifice drives these reptilians wild with carnage. Now, some of you may have seen what appears to be a little kid's movie called Monsters, Inc. Monsters, Inc. is simply a way of portraying what they truly do in these sacrifices. They shapeshift into these reptiles, and if you look at Monsters, Inc., these are various forms of reptiles. And they say that they're capturing the screams, that they scare the children to capture their screams. No, in truth, they terrorize, torture these children until the pineal gland releases what is known as adrenochrome into the blood. And they want to drink the blood with the adrenochrome in it. In fact, they sell it on the black market, and many of your global leaders see this, purchase it. This is what they're part of. They're part of this system. Many of your celebrities are part of this system. And so the reason they appear to stay so young is they drink this blood with the adrenochrome in it. So there's a lot more information I could go into, family. Doctor, do you want me to continue, or do you want me to yield the call to you? Because I could go on for quite some time if you want me to.
I am shining. And I want to say to you right now, you're doing such an excellent job. I would be one that I would prefer you go on, but I want to say this to everyone who's listening. I want to have them rise and shine based on the fact this is the U.S. of A call. This is the call in which we have given it that title based upon the fact that this is a place where by now to be identified or recognized, the whole world will recognize it as being the U.S. of A. That is more than one meaning for those letters, U.S. of A. And at some point in time, I will be able to bring the whole entire world to an understanding of what that U.S. of A really truly stands for and why it has been chosen as what we might classify to be some would-be initials. But you're doing a great job of bringing everyone to that point. I do know that what's happening right now is the work of Allah, God of the universe. And being that now you have been, I would say, around me some 18 plus years now, by the time we walk into this 20th year, we are going to open one of those portals. And I know that we got a lot of people listening right now. I'm saying this before I allow you to go back and continue in an area. I know where the Spirit is leading us right now is what I'm doing and leading you into where you need to be as well. A lot of people are listening now has no clue of what they're listening to, who they're listening to, and why it's so important for them to pay close attention. Those men and women that has been, I would say, in my company or my presence at some point in time, I've always told them to remain focused, to stay focused, and it's for this very reason. Because I didn't come to the planet to be of this would-be so-called world in which we so live in. I didn't come here to have a family, to marry, to have children, and all the things in which man is allowed to do. That was not my initial reason or purpose for being on this planet. Being that I came and I'm asking Father Yahweh to give me those things, I have found myself being connected to people on the planet that my Father allowed me to, based upon the fact to get them to understand that one must at least come to a point of being here on the planet in a human flesh, in a human life, where people will find themselves coming up with their own ideal of why you're here, of what your purpose is, of what it is that you have to do in order to be able to even be around them. So they have no clue. I want to help you out with your teaching right now because I've been there before. I would say that I call him Dr. Ike. I would say Dr. Ike, those men like Bill Cooper, known to the world as the author of what is known as Behold a Pale Horse. I can go on and on and on, as well as being around Mr. John McAfee, which once used to, him and I be awakened 2, 3 a.m. in the morning, whereby we would be discussing the future of the planet. He's no longer on the planet. There's a lot of other men that were once upon a time known to be well, I would say, they would be well educated in the area of knowing the future of the planet. And a lot of them are not here anymore, such as one that will be known as Dr. Isaiah or Dr. Ishmael, which I was there present listening and watching him as they were opening him up for an operation that he already knew that he would not survive it. I have been on phone calls with those that were preparing to leave the planet, emergency rooms with those that were planning on leaving the planet. But each one of them knew exactly what their purpose was, and they served their purpose while they were on the planet, whereby we were able to complete a process. You will complete your process as well as everyone on the planet, and especially those who have been in my presence, based upon the fact that you're speaking now about the family, the 33, the 13, and those that are classified even to be the number one elitist or the elite test based upon the 300. They have done movies based upon the 300 Club and the 300 Would-Be Adventure and all these things, and they were leading people up to understand what was going on. Here's what I want you to do for me now, because you're talking about the reptilian family based upon the Matrix. Children of the Matrix is the name of that book. And I need you to recognize the fact that those children of the Matrix, some of them are listening to us right now. Some of them are on the call with us at this very moment. And I know that they just met on July 15th in what was known as the Bohemian Groves, or the Bohemian Groves. Because mostly everyone is saying Bohemian, but it's Bohemian. And the reason why it's pronounced a certain way because it's like the Bohemians of those of the Bohemians are a classified group of would-be reptilians that are another would-be offsprings of the ones that are classified as the children of the Matrix. So all of them exist. As I said, there are many angels, and I can be honestly truthful with the world. I know all the angels by their names, and thereby I can tell you if one has come or if one is leaving, based upon the fact of the reason why I'm here and who I am. And I know to be speaking like this now, a lot of people might think that something's mentally wrong with you, but that's because those of the people, and majority of them are also children of the Matrix, that they have an inability to be able to do what we call understand truth. They're too caught up in the world of mysticalism based upon fairy tales. So I want to, as you begin to come back with your teaching, I want you to listen to this. You're talking about a family, and you named one of those families, which is, and I want to help you out so you can be able to extend your study in this regard. You're speaking of the would-be so-called Spencers. Do you remember that name you used, Spencer?
Yes, Princess Diana was out of the Spencer family.
There you have it. I need you to understand that Princess Diana was not to be married to the one that everyone keeps calling now Prince Philip. Princess Diana also had a sister. You're aware of that, right?
I am.
She had an elder sister, a sister that was older than her.
Yes.
And believe it or not, her sister were to be espoused or married to the one we know to be Prince Philip.
Charles?
So Diana was not his choice of a bride, okay?
Right.
His choice in which he had as a bride was not even his choice, but it was chosen by the families because those families were of the same bloodline. Okay? And it's total incest based upon what took place with Diana and would-be Charles. Okay? So Princess Charles and Diana were already linked as family. They were already in the same bloodline of the reptilians. So the reason I'm saying this, because I need everyone to get out and off that soapbox of believing that Diana was so great and she was a perfect princess, and now everything seems to be going backwards now that Charles is by himself, because that's not the whole thing. Prince Philip were to marry his son, Prince Charles, to Diana's sister, her older sister. That was the way it was to be set up. But Diana's sister was a wayward would-be daughter. She was one that she refused to lie, as in the garden again, beneath man. And she refused it. And so, as it went, it was anger, the one known as Mother, or should we call her Queen Mother Elizabeth. And Queen Mother Elizabeth died when she was 101 years old. You are aware of that, right?
I am now.
Queen Mother died when she was 101. And that was Diana's mother. Okay, so that was considered to be also one known to be Queen Elizabeth II's mother. Are you following me? All right. So here we have these older women having children or daughters, and they're kind of separating their daughters off into what is known as a bloodline, whereby they can breed them on to their sons or to their sons' sons. Are you following me?
Uh-huh.
So what we have here is a classic way to bring everyone to a point where they kind of now go into your elementary class to understand that what you're telling them is because of the lewdness, because of the wicked, evil things that were happening in those families, incest, rape, the obsession with the women and what the women would do, like Queen Mother Elizabeth, the one that died at 101-year-old. She was missing for a long time, and they found her in a pub. She was in a pub getting drunk, doing all the things that those lewdness of the women, when they called them loose women, would be doing. Okay, so she wasn't a classic grandmother or a classic mother. And Queen Elizabeth II is no classic grandmother or mother either. There's a facade. It looks beautiful now that she's old and can barely even move around, and it looks like they're having to carry her everywhere. She looks like this small statue of a lady, and she no longer can bounce and jump over barrels. She can no longer find herself with her legs wrapped around a real live donkey where she would be mounting him. She no longer can do that anymore. So she kind of looks like now she's helpless when she's not. So she's kind of playing on everyone else's weakness based upon sympathy for an elderly lady. Now, the reason I'm carrying you to your studies, and I'm going to go silent, and I'm going to yield to you, I need you to understand that based upon the Windsors and the Spencers, the Mattenbach, all of them are the same bloodline. They all not are just, would-be so-called people that met each other, that was attracted to each other. They were family. They were brothers and sisters, aunties and uncles, first cousins, not second cousins. That's came up with a law about you could marry your second cousin as long as you didn't know about it. All these things came about. But you need to understand all of those people were of the same bloodline, the same family, the Windsors, the Spencers, all of them. And right now, they are still living in this world, where they need that Nia. They need the blood, RNA, of the real human, the celestial side of the RNA, in order for them to be able to maintain their longevity. That's why Prince Philip was real up in age when he died. That's why Queen Elizabeth II now is up in age and she's still living. That's why you have people like Queen Mother was still up in age and she was still living. And one would believe that the one they would classify as King George would have still been living as well had he not been killed. That's another one of their so-called secrets, because he had a stake driven through his heart, a wooden stake. All these things have been hidden to the world, where the world now has no clue that they have been entertaining nothing more than those that they deem to be vampires, bloodsuckers. They have been entertaining them. And they have been watching them on movies and stuff and carrying it along. So with that, I need you to understand that where you're carrying them down this rabbit hole is going to get real, real, real deep. And if the people are willing to listen to it, it's going to be great. because this is where we stop, where the laws of the land have never, ever been followed. And the Supreme Court of the United States of America now has a few of those that are inside of it that are truly those that are of the RNA blood strand, and they are the ones now that telling the whole world that they refuse to go along with what was known as abortion, based upon the fact that it has a lot to do with eugenics and eliminating those that they classify to be unfit. And I've had a long, extensive teaching with you and with the rest of the people that are listening now. Majority of them, I have been talking to you guys about unproductive for a long time now. And this is part of the unfit, that they're classifying those people to be part of the unproductive. And they're planning on eliminating those of the unproductive world of being unfit and tying it into eugenics based upon eliminating a vast number of people off the planet. But let me do this and allow you to carry on, because it's such a time as now is very much needed. So I'm going to yield. I yield.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. And thank you for the explanation between the Spencers and the Windsors and the Mountbattens, I'm thinking that's who you said. But anyway, to carry on, family. So now we're talking about the excretion from the pineal gland and how they use this blood, they drink this blood. Now, these reptilians have a hypnotic gaze, which will actually transfix their victims into basically a trance of terror. And that promotes that secretion from the pineal gland, known as adrenochrome. At that point, these reptilians, or people, if you want to call them that, cannot hold human form any longer, because they shapeshift because they know they're getting ready to eat. They have a pecking order in these blood fest ceremonies. And nowadays, because of all the additives in our food and everything, and our bodies as mankind have been deteriorating just because of the lack of quality of food that we have. And so it seems that because we're deteriorating, the same effect of our blood for them has been deteriorating, and they're needing more and more blood. Now, one of the things that they have done is in the what they called abortion clinics, which are nothing more than slaughterhouses, a lot of these children were sold for their blood. They were sold for their body parts because they eat children as well. They're cannibals. So it goes on to say that in these ceremonies, they have capitalized on every druidic and magical date to try to get as much use out of the effect of the lunar cycle on female menstrual blood. And a lot of these false flags you will see being done on certain dates because they believe that on these specific dates, more demonic power is released. So again, they're talking about female menstrual blood. They call this aspect of the menstrual blood cycle starfire. And one of the people that was in the MK Ultra program from a child is a woman by the name of Arizona Wilder. And she's out of the UK. And she was under control. They have a controller for them through this MK Ultra. And if their controller dies, what will happen to them is they will try to get another controller to come in and to work with the MK slave. But they don't always reconnect. They're not able to reconnect. And at that point, that's what happened to Arizona Wilder. I've actually read her book and seen many of her videos. But because she was not able to reconnect, the altars of her mind, where they separate her from being a controlled slave to just being a normal person that walks around, has a job, and has no concept that she even has this other altar in her brain. So, but when she loses the control of the controller, her brain starts coming back together again, and there's two separate altars, the front altar of the normal person and the back altar of the MK slave. They start coming together again, and she starts realizing, they realize, oh my gosh, I actually participated in this. Well, she, through the grace of God, was able to come out of this. She actually has survived, and she has started to tell the truth about these satanic rituals, that she actually was the person performing the rituals for these reptilian family lines. And so these are people that she says she is actually shape-shifted into reptiles. H.W. Bush, George W. Bush, Madeleine Albright, Henry Kissinger, Ronald and Nancy Reagan, John Rockefeller, President Ford, President Carter, President Johnson. That's the people from the U.S., from the U.K. Just as you were saying, sir, a moment ago, the Queen Mother, Queen Elizabeth II, Princess Margaret, Prince Charles, Tony Blair, Prince Philip, Zechariah Stitchin, Lawrence Gardner, and several of the international leaders as well. She's also seen the Pindar out of the Rothschild bloodline. And the term Pindar literally means phallus of the dragon, or penis of the dragon. And his job is to provide superior seed to impregnate the specially bred Aryan and bloodline children, which includes, just as you mentioned, sir, Princess Diana, and who brought forth Prince William. Now, from what this article says, or this book says, Prince William looks just like his father, Lord Rothschild. So in the underground vaults, in the castle, in the Alsace region of France, there are green, glowing, fluorescent rocks that actually turn stored menstrual blood black to be used at that special ritual. And apparently, it says that while in the great heat, reptile eggs incubate in that blood and through that heat that is created. So again, they're reptilian, they lay eggs. The Queen Mother is the second to the Pindar, and she is carried on a rich, ornate chair before she changes into something much bigger and stronger when she comes into these ceremonies. At the ceremonies, now they're talking about the Queen Mother. They're also talking about Elizabeth, because now she has taken that seat. So at the ceremonies, they wear huge robes, much bigger than they are, of red or purple, and they're decorated in gold and sewn jewels and embroidered fleur-de-lis, and they don't wear any human clothes. Because when Elizabeth shapeshifts from this squatty, little humped-over little old lady, she grows an additional 2 feet in size and totally changes. So at the British House, apparently they have jewel-encrusted goblets to drink the blood from the symbolic female grail and use a symbolic dagger to give it a bit of a stir. Now, Arizona Wilder has, again, performed these ceremonies and has been there, has seen many global leaders. Now, to speak about Diane's death, sir, it goes into this in this article, because she was getting ready to blow the whole lid off of all of this secrecy about what we're telling you now. Now, she gives a very detailed description, she being Arizona Wilder, gives a detailed description about what the Queen Mum looked like. She was 8 feet tall with a snout and fangs. They all have a long tongue with hair-like protrusions with claws for hands and feet. They have scales, and these seem to disappear into one another, more pronounced on the back. Some have vestigial wings. All have a tail, usually kept curled, which is whipping about when it's agitated. She goes on and gives much more detailed information about the Queen Mum. She said Charles apparently has 2 large protrusions just above where his human ears are, but basically he looks like her, and they have slits for a pupil. Many people have seen, such as Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton and the Bushes, when they get agitated, their pupils go from round to slits. Now they're talking about Queen Elizabeth is much darker. They give you a description of what she looked like. But get to the meat of this. Arizona Wilder said that Princess Diana's death was a ritual, public sacrifice, to usher in the age of Horus. That's the Egyptian magical tradition, or the rebirth of the dead god Osiris. And because the magicians like to mirror dates, when she's talking mirror, she's talking tetragrammaton, where you look at it from one side, it's this way, and you flip it the other way and look at it from the other direction. So it's reversed, as she said, a mirror. She said they like to mirror dates. The dark goddess Hecat's number is 13, which is why the 31st of August was chosen. We'll be coming up on that date, the end of this month. The mirror effect of the numbers. It was a mirror of an Isis, Osiris, Horus ritual, because 3 people died, and the unborn baby that Diana was carrying was a very special 3-month-old. She had been pregnant for 3 months. Now, apparently, Baron Rothschild, who is the Pindar, had to be in the tunnel at the 13th pillar where the accident happened to take the soul of Diana. And, yes, an ambulance arrived on the scene minutes after the crash. However, they remained in that tunnel for an hour before she was taken to the hospital. She was actually dead at the scene. They waited until she died. The driver, that was Henry Paul, was mind-controlled, and he had been trained for the crash. It goes on to say that pieces of Diana's body were then eaten by the hierarchy. Arizona Wilder said that some of the Spencers were there at those rituals, but that Diana would not attend, and that symptoms of bulimia and anorexia were mind-control techniques used on her. Arizona Wilder also said that the smell of Diana's periods would have caused Charles to shapeshift, especially while sleeping, because the reptiles cannot retain their true human form without concentration. She came across as a very sincere person in their accounts, and she spoke about the things which she and her children had been subjected to through these transformation study and control groups. Pindar called Sirius the shape-shifting dog of the great goddess. Chinese astronomers knew that it is the celestial jackal, or lang, that legendary figures use for target practice with the constellation Hu, or Hushi, bow. So now, family, we're getting back to who really controls these world events. It's these 13 bloodlines, and they have such family names as Astor, Bundy, Collins, DuPont, Freeman, Kennedy, Lee, and just a little aside, Facebook CEO, his wife is out of this Lee family bloodline. Onassis, Reynolds, Rockefeller, Rothschild, Russell, Van Duyn, Merovingian, and an interconnected family are the Disneys, Krupp, and McDonald's. Another aside family is the Disney family. Walt Disney, being of this bloodline, was a known pedophile. In fact, Disneyland was started and continues to this day for the same thing. You know, they always say, hold on to your children, they'll disappear in Disneyland, because they're being kidnapped. They say there's underground cities under Disneyland and Disney World, and there for sure are. There are underground cities. The pedophile rings are run under there. A few years back at Disney World in Florida, they had a blackout, shut down all the power, and the White Hats went into those underground cities and rescued children out of there. I don't know everything else that they did. My guess is they shut it down, because I know that they have been shutting down tunnels and sex trafficking rings that have been running underground throughout the planet. There's tunnels that run through this whole planet, and they have been blasting them, getting the children out, then blasting them and shutting them down. And this is still continuing to this day. So from David Icke's book, Children of the Matrix, in early 1998, when he was going around the U.S., and of a period of about 15 days, he said he met 12 separate people in different locations and very contrasting walks of life. And they were basically telling him the same story of seeing a human being change into a reptilian form before their very eyes. And I actually have a very dear friend, I won't call her name, who she and I got to talking about Hillary Clinton. And she told me that she was on a board of a particular organization with Hillary Clinton, and that Hillary was upset. She was not pleased with the way the meeting was going because it was not going the way she wanted it to go. She got angry, and my friend saw her shapeshift before her very eyes. And at the time, she was thinking my girlfriend was thinking she was losing her mind. But no, what she saw was real. And so when I was able to confirm to her that what she saw was real, she was like, wow, so this really does go on. But so, that's secondhand information to me, family. But I can tell you that these things are going on. They have continued to go on. But right now, the righteous people of this planet, call them the White Hats, the Alliance, whatever group you want to call them, we call them the Global Reset, because we have over 7 billion people working with us to take this whole system down. Everything that Father Allah that has given to his son, Dr. Henderson, YAHOSHUA Mashiach, to put in place has shut the system down. The Vatican has been shut down. The false crown of England, remember Queen Elizabeth and her bloodline are the reptilians. They stole the bloodline from the last true royal family member of doctor's heritage, King Henry VII. So they stole the crown from the true Hebrew Israelites of the tribe of Judah. There's a reason that under the throne in England is a stone. That stone is known as the stone of Jacob. Scripture talks about this, that Jacob had used that stone as a pillow. And that stone had been used, he had that when Father Allah changed his name from Jacob to Israel. And every king since then in that true royal bloodline was crowned on that stone. And so that's why that stone still remains, although it is in the hands of the unrighteous. So with that, family, I'd like to go ahead and yield the call back to you, sir.
I'm still shining.
Beautiful.
Outstanding. Excellent job. Wow. I know it's going to get even better as we go along. I want to say again, excellent job. You do understand that stone is known as the stone of Bethel. Bethel
okay.
Bethel
yes.
Baka. If you read the Holy Scripture, you'll find him saying he placed a holy throne on Bethel. And he said it was a stone in which he used, and he rested his head on it. He slept on it that night. And Bethel has a name called Bethel Baka. And Baka means house of heaven, or heavenly house. Baka. And that's why you hear us saying Abba Baka. And there's the house of so
Father's heavenly house, Abba Baka.
Yeah, and you've seen it in writing. You've seen some paperwork. You have seen.
I got it right here.
That's those things in which me and my brother had put together before, based upon the fact of being part and why we're here. So, those things, they are definitely real. You now are beginning to also get a reality of who and what you're dealing with and why it's so important at this moment in time for you to be doing what you're doing. That's why I can tell you that I'm always going to go along with what my Father tells me to do. In regards to my Father has a plan for all things. All things have been planned by my Father. So we are going to follow those things because the whole world is going to change whether it wants to or not. It don't get a choice. And I'm here. You keep hearing me say to the people and to yourself, perfect love will cast out all fear. It does not destroy all sin, but it does cast out and destroy all fear. Perfect love. That is why you hear where the one known to the world as Roosevelt, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, he left this little would-be inscription in Washington, D.C., where he says there's nothing to fear but fear itself. And he did that purposely to put the people in a position where if they were going to fear, they would fear fear. And whereby would also build that blood in which the reptilians need to drink in order to be able to maintain this ability to control the world. So that's why he said there's nothing to fear but fear itself, because he wanted the people to fear. He wanted them to fear fear. That is why they keep constantly wanting man or wanting the people of the real mankind of the celestial world to fear God, because just by that fear, it will give them the ability again to be able to drink this blood in which they need. Yes, that's why you hear me constantly talking to the women about the cycle and about what happens during that time frame. Life is in the blood. And as I tell women now, I want them to understand that a lot of women boast and they brag about only being married one time. But many of them, they have had numerous and multiple boyfriends. And I need them to understand that any time that they receive what we know to be an ejaculation of semen that went inside of their body, that was not just a body of semen that you might call it, but it was a drop of blood. And believe it or not, that blood is still in their bodies to this day. Still there. It'll never leave because it had life in it. And that life cannot die. Which is why they were cautioned by their mothers as they were growing, don't lay down and sleep with every boy or every man or every individual that you find yourself running into. Let's be careful about who you choose and who you pick as a would-be, one that you might call a mate or a partner. Because that partner and that mate is going to leave a drop of blood in you, providing that you don't use that would-be so-called added protection to prevent that. That drop of blood is going to be living in you for eternity, because that life never dies. It don't die. Not to draw up or to drum up any would-be anger in women now to realize that, okay, I had more than one would-be lover, and thereby, how many other lovers that you've had, I would have to tell you that, if you receive their semen inside of you, it's still there, it lives. It will not ever die. It's going to always be in your living. No, it don't get to materialize itself, and it don't get to come to a point of where it will make itself known to the world that, hey, I'm a life and become a child or by birth, but it's going to be living now. Which is why a lot of ladies wonder why that their attitude or their emotions change from time to time, and they become real angry or real upset about things that normally would not have bothered them when they were younger. And that's why. Because they're carrying around this one live would-be spirit of a being inside of them that keeps invading their body from time to time. Stay with me. I don't want to get anyone out there to a point where you start losing yourself or you get angry at yourself or you start disrespecting yourself, because this is something that the majority of the people on the planet don't learn until now, until these hours, these days, these ages that you are now. You wasn't taught that by your parents. You wasn't taught that by your mothers. You wasn't taught that by your grandmothers, because some of your grandmothers and grandparents, they did have this information. They knew this information. And I don't want you to be angry with them, but we have to be honest that a lot of them, they slept on it. They kept it. They didn't tell you, but they were well aware of it. And some of them believe that they were protecting you from it. Rather than to let you know about it, they believe they were protecting you from it. And some of your grandmothers would let you know. They wouldn't tell you why they were saying and doing what they were doing. But you better believe that they had great intentions on helping you keep your legs closed, whereby you didn't bring all these demons home with you by way of someone's semen. Having this livelihood of an energy inside of you that was not truly a part of you. That's basically what happened in the garden with Eve. Eve actually was able to allow herself to have these two semens placed inside of her, one of Lucifer and one that was known of Adam, which was, if one might call him to be Jesus in the first flesh, the first coming of Jesus, known as the first coming of man. Adam himself having imparted something in her that was classified to be his semen, just as Lucifer also put his semen inside. And this is why the two of the children were on the inside, warring even while they were still on the inside with one another. I'm just giving you the facts of how it works. And right now they have this thing that's coming out. It's called the dark secrets of the Vatican being revealed. The reason being is because the Vatican has been set up to a point where all these things have always been known by the Vatican. And the Vatican, based upon various leaders that they have had and used, they have kept these things as a would-be so-called secret. But at the same time, they could have prevented a lot of people from erring or a lot of people going into areas where they kind of made mistakes that they would not have made had they had these truths and they were able to read these particular holy scriptures or these holy books or even these books of information. They would not have made those same choices in which they made, which is why it says, forgive them, for they know not what they do. That's why Father, Allah, God of the universe, has given mankind this with the ability to be able to be forgiven or even forgive himself based upon not knowing. If I might, myself, I want to say this based upon the fact that everyone else listening. Just this week, we had one known as Liz Cheney, and you're speaking about those people that were connected or are connected to this bloodline of whatever's going on that's of the elites, and this elites, they're holding everyone else under a standard whereby they can keep everybody controlled while the leaders still put those in control that are part of these children of the Matrix. Now, believe it or not, Liz Cheney is one known to be one of those children of the Matrix. She's one of the children of the Matrix. I know one might say, well, are you saying she's a bad person? What I'm saying to you is she is part of the Matrix. Those children of the Matrix are reptilians. If you want to call them one of the greens or the grays or the friendly greens or the friendly grays, you go right ahead and you do that. I'm just letting you know how they're tied into that would-be global world of a bloodline of the 33, the 13, and the 300. And she's one of those. Just recently, Liz Cheney was speaking out against Donald Trump. She was talking about if the DOJ, she says if they do not prosecute Donald Trump, whereby she believes there's evidence to prosecute him. She's saying that if the DOJ does not prosecute him, she's saying that the DOJ will be putting the United States in a position whereby it will be saying that we live in a nation of no law. Now, I have to help Liz out on that because on that particular would-be statement that she's making, I would have to agree with her. At the same time, I would have to tell her that that has already been noted. The nation that's known as the United States of America is a nation of no laws. That's why it's known to be Babylon. Babylon the Great is a nation of no laws. They don't comply to anybody's law. Just as her father, Dick Cheney, is out there screaming and hollering and calling Donald Trump a coward and saying he's a coward. He should be man enough to stand up, to own up to what he's done and what he did for January would be 6, and he was part of the crew. And, for Dick Cheney to be screaming that, you have to understand that here is a serpent himself, a snake, a Luciferian. And everyone should be able to recognize Dick Cheney, knowing that that's Elizabeth Cheney, which they call her Liz Cheney, her mother's name, Liz. Her name is Elizabeth, and they call her Liz Cheney. They should recognize that with her father, Dick Cheney, being part of an elitist group is the way she became part of that elitist group. She didn't just accidentally bump in and become some would-be so-called senator or senate in the White House. She's been groomed. She's been even to a point where she was birthed just to do what she's doing now. Now, the reason I'm saying that because Dick Cheney is calling Donald Trump a liar and calling him one that we might see him saying a coward. And here's a man by the name of Dick Cheney, who everybody has to remember that this was a vice president during the time of what was known as the Iraqi War. He was the vice president, but then one known as George H. Bush, or George W. George H.W. Bush, which being the father of George W. Bush, was also one who was also in a war with Iraq. That was your first with the Iraqi war that America went to war against. And the way that Dick Cheney fits into that particular moment is that Dick Cheney was known at that time, that was back in 1989, for all of you that can't really go back that far, no apology for you, but you need to go and check your history. And this is why it's so important to do your own study, because in 1989, Dick Cheney was known as the Secretary of Defense. And the Secretary of Defense was making all of the decisions